Hi, my name is Reginald Harris, and I'm a senior fellow at the Children's Funding Project. Thanks for joining us for the latest video in our series of interviews with local and state elected leaders. Each of these leaders in this series has been a champion for kids and helped their communities fund essential services for infants, toddlers, children, and youth. Today, I'd like to welcome Jay Schenirer, former City Council member in Sacramento, California, and also joining us as a surprise guest is Claudia Jason. And Claudia, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Reginald. Thanks for having me and including me. I'm Claudia Jason. I work closely with Jay as his youth policy specialist for 9 years to help Sacramento become a more youth-friendly city.
We are so glad to have you. So in 2022, Mr. Schenirer championed a campaign called Yes on Measure L, which created a voter-approved children's fund to support essential programs for kids. The fund will generate about $10 million annually for comprehensive services for children and youth, including mental health services, homelessness prevention, youth transitions out of foster care, substance abuse prevention and intervention programs, youth job training and early childhood care and education, and also programs to prevent crime, drug, and gang violence. The effort was led by Sac Kids First, a coalition of youth-focused community organizations, including nonprofits, education, law enforcement officials, and business leaders. After many years of persistence and unsuccessful efforts in 2016 and 2020, children and youth advocates in Sacramento finally succeeded in creating a children's fund. As a result of the successful ballot measure, the city will set aside a portion of its annual budget equal to 40% of the city's cannabis tax revenue. Again, Mr. Schenirer, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I actually would like to begin by asking about the political landscape at the time you championed the voter approved initiative. How much support did the effort have, and did you face any opposition? And also, how has your community typically viewed ballot initiatives and levies?
Sacramento is a pretty liberal city, and I think over time has generally voted for initiatives that will bring more revenue into the city. This one actually was not a tax increase, which was very important politically, but a shift in how some funds were used. And Reggie, as you said, an amount equal to 40% of our cannabis revenues, which was about $10 million, or will be about $10 million a year, and hopefully will increase over time. This initiative, was my third try at it, and certainly not myself alone, but with lots of others. You mentioned Sac Kids First. The mayor was an advocate this time around, as were really a majority of the city council. Things have changed since I first did this. So the opposition, well, very importantly, we went to our unions, our fire union, fire department union, and our police union very early on to talk about what this could mean for them, how it could actually help them in many ways when you think about a new definition of public safety in our neighborhoods. And also when you think about some of the academies that fire and police have, where they're trying to recruit young people from Sacramento to join their ranks, and also something that could vastly help with the diversity of those departments. So between the mayor and myself, we worked with the fire union 522, who came along in support. And, we talked a lot about the long-term relationship between the council and the unions. And I think that had something to do with it, because we really want to foster a positive relationship. We didn't quite get to support with the police union, but we did keep them neutral. So really at the end of the day, there was very little funded opposition. A couple of our colleagues on the council, one in particular, did not like ballot box budgeting, as he put it, and voted against it and actually funded some work against it. But really nothing in comparison to the work done by the young people, knocking on doors every weekend, really running a ground campaign. And on this one, I would classify myself and Claudia as support. These young people really carried the day.
Awesome. And so to follow up, you mentioned that there were 2 attempts that, weren't successful, but you finally, you got them the third attempt. What were the sort of main, and you touched on this, but I think sort of
Yeah.
just highlight and isolate, like the main takeaways, or how would you like categorize some of the things you learned into like, here's some stuff that you should absolutely consider if you're going to try to get a voter approved initiative on the ballot?
Right. So our first try at it, Measure Y, was a small increase in our cannabis taxes. It moved money and then added 1%. So the tax increase was a little bit difficult. Taking money out of the general fund and giving it to kids basically was not really positive for some individuals. But most of all, because it was a tax increase, it was a 2/3 vote. So 66.6667, whatever, was the necessary bar that we had to get over. And we were less than 1% beyond that or underneath it. So very, very close, but 2/3 votes are incredibly difficult. You're walking in the door with at least 30% who are going to vote no, regardless of what the issue is. So what we were able to do, and I'll come back to the second attempt, but what we were able to do because of what you mentioned, that this is 40% of a current tax that would be moved over, this was a 50% plus one vote. So that made a huge difference. It wouldn't have passed this time either with a 2/3 vote. So everything you can do, and different communities did it a little bit differently, but everything you can do to get to a 50% plus one. On the second time around, and this was led really by nonprofit groups, I signed on. I think there were some challenges with the writing of the initiative, just to be honest, where the council would have a yes or no vote on the entire package of spending versus being able to do what the council does. And so you had opposition from the mayor and from many of the city council members because of that, because it's hard to give up some of your authority in that. So really making sure, and that changed from Measure G to Measure L, giving the council final authority to really look at and change, if necessary, the package brought by the Citizens Committee, Citizens Oversight Committee on a spending plan.
Great. And, I would think in sort of to that end, when we begin to think about, all right, so every city is different, or county is different. And so I obviously need to be intimately aware of and understanding all of the dynamics that are playing out in my communities. But are there any sort of overarching themes you would share with an elected official, particularly about the role, right? If I'm an elected and I actually I want to champion this, are there some do's and don'ts, some things I should consider in thinking about wanting to pursue one of these ballot initiatives?
No, I think, Reggie, that's a great question. And every city, county, municipality has its own characteristics and its own relationships. And, the world, certainly the political world, is built on relationships. And, our ability, for example, to get the fire union 522 to come on and support, that was huge, because in the previous election, I think they spent about $100,000 to try to defeat it. It's important to see the big picture. How does this fit into what you're trying to do as a city or county? How does this move towards your goals? How does this give you success that you can talk about? I think, and we don't do this nearly enough and need to do it more, playing up public safety. When you provide after school programming and positive youth development and spaces, all the things that we know work, let's keep kids out of the back of police cars rather than buying more police cars, right? That has been my mantra for many, many years now. So I think we need to really try to change the narrative about this and what this will really do in a positive manner for the community. And again, I want to give so much credit to Sac Kids First. They really ran the campaign. They were out knocking on doors, and they were every day showing people what assets young people can be in a community. Not someone you have to be scared of, not someone you have to cross the street to ignore, but someone who can bring something to the community that moves it forward.
Yeah. Claudia, we have you as a special guest. Is there anything Jay and I didn't cover that you would want to add?
Sure. I think I'd make 2 points about giving advice as you framed it. I think having an elected official as a champion plays a key role in how we get the measure to the ballot. Signature gathering is really hard and expensive for community groups. If the key role an elected could play here is figure out a way to get their governing body to vote to put it on the ballot. That saves a lot of money and a lot of time and energy for our community folks to focus on the campaign itself. So that would be first. Secondly, Jay alluded to this about thinking about the big picture. One thing we did in Sacramento is we didn't wait from one campaign to the other to think about kids and do things for kids. We were getting policies moved forward. We were getting infrastructure in place and programs as we moved from one campaign to the other to show folks it's not just about the money. It's this larger big picture effort to make Sacramento as a city more youth friendly. So yes, the ballot measure and the children's fund is critical. And we wanted to show people there are other things that cities can do in the meantime to support our kids.
And if I can add a couple things to that, I agree with everything Claudia says, because I'm smart enough to know to agree with everything that she says. But 2 things, I think. One is definitely you have to look at the big picture here. And we had a lot of momentum and have a lot of momentum around what we're doing with young people. When I think about a legacy, both for Claudia and myself, because she was so involved in all of this, I think about the youth liaison position that will be sitting at the youth person that will be sitting on the dais at the city council, something that we did by ordinance so that they're working with it. I think that's almost more important than the funds because it sets an example of what's going on. Funds can be spent poorly. But we need young people in the right place. We've put them on a lot of our boards and commissions to really have youth voice in everything we do. I mean, we say young people should be involved in every decision that affects them. Every decision the council makes affects our young people. So having them in the right place at the right time is really important. The second thing I would say, and this can be difficult, is really try to work with your bureaucracy. I know, for example, our city manager was not crazy about this. It puts some restrictions on him and moves money around that he may not want moved. But at the end of the day, it's a council decision to do it. But we also work, for example, really closely with our city attorney's office. And the result there was we got the language that we wanted on the ballot measure. I mean, that could win or lose a ballot measure. And we're working with them on implementation of this going forward to make sure, because even, you pass a ballot measure, if it's not implemented correctly, it could fail just as easily as if it had lost at the ballot.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jay and Claudia, for joining me and for this conversation and discussion. One of the things that I'm really still struck by, and I think is really powerful, is that what I heard from the both of you is that the work painted this very clear vision for children and youth in your community. And the ballot initiative was just a step along the path of that vision, right? You were going there, you were going to get this done, right? You were going to figure out a way. And so it was kind of like, this is the train, you can get on, right. But we're moving. And I think that approach, it's just so smart, right? And I really appreciate you highlighting that in our time together. And so, as we end, to learn more about the Children's Funding Project and view other videos in this series, please visit our website at childrensfundingproject.org. And thanks for watching.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Our goal here, we had a lot of help from everyone, including you all, is to play it forward. The more communities we can get to understand how important it is to support our young people, the better off we are as a larger community and certainly as a state. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.